Yo, what up, boys? We're talking about it. The new Eslabon Armado album. How great was it? Let's get to it. Track one, the sad intro. Now, I'm gonna have to get back to this because the album goes full circle. This is it's becoming a more common trope in albums to have the last song transition into the first one, but it works beautifully here. The sad intro just sets up the scene for the whole breakup that he's going through and how it's tormenting him. And then we get into Te Odio, one of the more played songs off this album. It is new, so the earlier tracks are all going to be more played. This song, great lyricism, talks about the pure hatred that he has for this love. It really just comes together in a great way, and it really sets you up to know that this album's gonna hit you, and it's gonna be fierce when it hits you. And then we get into Dime. Dime, I like this song a lot because it tickles your brain in a weird way. The way that you're expecting a 4 bar measure, and then he cuts into the next bar. Like he'll go Dime, Dime. He doesn't let it fully finish the 4 bar uh, sequence. He'll cut in early to drop the next D May, and it cuts into the the way that the experience is really cutting into his life, and it keeps sending him into this questioning, and it's rushing against the grain. It's doing what it's not supposed to. XOXO, this song's all right. I mean, it's just a better, well, it's not really better. It's just like equal to some of the weaker songs off the first Vibras de Noche, where it feels like it has the capability to be catchy, but it's very sad and it's very drawn out, and I feel like that kind of takes away from its ability to really stand out to me personally, because it's there. It works with the theme of this album, which is like the pure sadness, the Vibras de Noche, the nighttime vibes. How's it feel in the dark hours of the night when everything gets sad, right? It works in that aspect, but overall, I think it's not the strongest song on here. It's a solid one though. Esa Noche, I really like this song, even though Macario Martinez, his voice, honestly not a big fan of it, but it does work. When he first jumps in there, it's a little appalling because you're used to Slaven Armado where he's like, and then this boy cuts it in here with like a really smooth voice, and at first it's like this is really weird. It doesn't have the same grit that the Slaven Armado songs usually have, and uh, but it manages to by after he says the chorus, when he gets to the verse, it really just picks up, and you feel the energy, and you're able to understand that he's just as capable of feeling these emotions, even though he can present it in like a nice wrapped up package. That's kind of how I interpreted it anyway. But I love that song. No Voy a Jugar. This one didn't really stand out to me a lot. Neither did just uh, 24 Horas. Both of those songs, they seem like they're trying to be catchy. They're trying to be like some of the hits off this album, but this album shouldn't be for the hits. I feel like this album's more of a cohesive piece where it works when every song works together, and you can't really get there when the songs are trying to be something they're not. It still manages to work here because it's still very sad and it's very cutthroat and deep, but I feel like these two songs weren't necessary. That's how I feel about Mientras Te Amaba. Well, actually, that one's a pretty solid song because it develops the plot of the album. It it really seems like that one takes us from the first half of the album, which is pure sadness and pure hatred, toward the second half where it's more an understanding and a more experience of this heartbreak and how it's hurting him. My cat's going crazy right now. You got something you want to say? You like the album? Now she's gonna smell some oranges. Then we get to M and Day. Oh, cat's coming through. M and Day. It my Cat didn't like it, but I thought it was pretty good at setting up the second half of the album to be something interesting and intriguing. Because the thing is, don't knock that off the table, please. Come on. The thing is with this album, it's a decent length. It's, what is it, 52 minutes? 52 minutes. Usually with albums, most great albums that we listen to are 40 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes. That's usually the range. 40 to 48 actually. But there's some that stand out, of course. Illmatic by Nas, way shorter than that. I'm pretty sure that one's 30 minutes. I think it's only 30 minutes, and then you have Enter the Wu-Tang, which is like an hour 10 minutes, or even longer maybe. Yeah, just like my cat said. But 52 minutes, you need to be able to, if your album's going to be long, you need to be able to captivate the audience for a long period of time. I think M and Day really helps the album keep its longevity for longer, because with albums like this, you're supposed to relax in the nighttime, look at the sky. Like, you can see the album cover. The album cover is beautiful. It has the same vibe as the former Vibras de Noche, just with a more modern look, where he's looking through the door of the sadness and of the night toward a better tomorrow. And it works really well. And Eres Arte, this song's really pretty. That's, I like it. It's a bad description, obviously, as trying to be like a music reviewer. This song's just pretty. I like the way that it sounds. I like the message behind it. I really like everything about this song. I think it's a very solid song to enter this new era of the music, because Vibras de Noche Part 2, although it is a sequel, Eslabon Armado's been pushing their boundaries with the past few albums, and I personally haven't necessarily liked the direction that they've been moving with their previous albums. This one in particular just works really well. It has the vibes of an old Eslabon Armado song with its new modern twist, where it's more deep and it feels more personal. And then we get to Que Diablos Hice Dos. That song didn't stick out to me in particular. I feel like it could just be that it came right after Eres Arte, because really following up my favorite song off the album, like, it's obviously going to be worse, but I don't feel like it works here. Although it is a part 2 to something else. I don't even remember the first Que Diablos Hice, but Que Diablos Hice Dos, just, maybe it works with the first Que Diablos Hice, but as a standalone, it doesn't do anything in particular, and going along with the whole story, I don't really feel like it adds much. Pero No Me Grites and Mira Nomas are similar in my opinion. It has the old instrumentation style where it's really smooth and suave, but when it really gets down to the lyrics, I feel like the lyricism falls off a little bit in these, and it takes us to El Alegre, which it sets us up. It's one of the last actual songs off the album, because after this we have the interlude. Interludes are hard to comment on. The interlude here just basically pushes us into the final wave of the story before it loops back around, where he's calling her, and he's talking about how he feels, and he just wants to know that she's okay, even though he's hurting because of her, because it's not her fault, it's his for falling for the heartbreak. But still, El Alegre, solid song, doesn't stand out in particular, works well with the album. It's kind of the story with a lot of these. Then we get to, after the interlude, we get to Como Le Hago. This one, I don't know why. I expected right after an interlude, I usually expect like a really good song, or like one of the top songs off the album. This one was just alright. It didn't really stand out to me in particular, but it was decent. I'd put it on the same level as it's like Mientras Te Amaba, or probably Mientras Te Amaba and Otras 24 Horas. I'm not the biggest fan of those two. They're all right though. And then, was that necessary, Cat? Just knocking stuff off the table. Then we get to the final track, Estado Mental, the outro. This one's really, as a standalone, awful, right? That's how a lot of outros are, and intros too. Standalone songs, it's like how interludes are. You tell a story with your art, so you can't take the movements between the segments as portions. But with the story, it loops together the end of the album with the start of it in a beautiful way, and it really just sets you up to listen to it again, and it hits just as hard the second time as the first. It's really, I listened to it last night, and then right when I woke up this morning started listening to it again. It it just circles back so perfectly, and it sends you right back into the emotional roller coaster of this album. So overall, I think this is going to be the greatest album of 2025, and I know it's very early to say that. I don't think anybody's in their prime right now. Really, on the rap side, we're kind of cooked. We can't keep pretending we're not. We have fucking Big X the Plug, and and like a bunch of other losers right now. Really, that's what they are. They're losers. Their raps, they all use the same producers, and all the beats are starting to sound the same. And they say, no, we use a different synth. You used a synth in 808s. It's getting pretty repetitive. This uses real instrumentation, and it's a solid album. It's got a great story from the start to the end. It works well as an album. These ones aren't gonna have the major hits like Ea Baia Sola. That one was made to be a hit. When you listen to that one, you're supposed to jam out to it. It doesn't work in the album. If you listen to that album by Eslabon Armado, that album's not great because they were trying to make hits. But really, this is bringing back the old style of Eslabon Armado that I loved, and I'm glad to see it because these guys are really talented and they have a lot of potential, and I think that this will be the greatest album of all time, or not of all time, of the year, because on the rap side we're cooked. On the Latin side, I don't expect anything to surpass this. I liked the Bad Bunny album, but I didn't think it was as unique and as profound as this one. And then on the other aspects like pop, those ones I can't really predict that well because there's a new pop artist that gets shoehorned in every single year. But we haven't seen anybody yet. So as it stands, this is my top album of the year. I'd give it a solid 8.5 out of 10 if I were to rate it. And I think that'll do for today. Now, if you have your own opinions about this album, if you have any other modern albums that you want me to review, if you want me to review some older albums, I listen to a lot of older music. That's why it's hard to make album reviews, but I was really excited for this one. I tried to go to bed last night, and I had to stay up and listen to this whole thing because the second I saw that it was released, I was like, oh, it's been so long since I've heard good Eslabon Armado, and if you're going to make a sequel to a great album, it better be fire, and they did not disappoint. 8.5 out of 10. Best album of 2025 so far as of March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Happy birthday to my dog, Thea, by the way. Happy birthday. Today's her birthday. She turned 8. So she's getting up there, but she's my favorite ever, and I love my dog very much. If you have any comments on this album, leave them in the description below. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of these. Tell me what I can improve on. I'm really trying to know because views are lacking right now. And without further ado, have a good one.